Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I am so excited today because we are talking about a subject that I know nothing about. I love this. I love it when I get to talk with people about a new subject. And we're really going to be talking about a subject that is for businesses that are growing. So this is going to be a very important program today. So please join me in welcoming Harry Drajpuch to our program today. Welcome, Harry. How are you doing?
Great, Deb. Thank you. Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Great. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will dive into this. So Harry Drajpuch is the CEO of Amware Fulfillment, a company that provides outsourced order fulfillment services to B2C and omni-channel brands. Amware operates 15 warehouse fulfillment centers across America. His career spans 30 plus years in logistics, and he's an expert in all the operational aspects of fulfillment, which is storing, picking, packing, and shipping online orders. Basically, everything that happens after the click. He is a Brooklyn, New York native and an instrument-trained pilot and flies his own airplane. I'm guessing between all these warehouses. So again, Harry, welcome to our program.
Thanks again. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it. Pretty exciting.
Great. Well, I always like to ask my guests how they got to where they are today, because I think it's very interesting to know someone's story. So tell us a little bit how you got into this business.
Graduated college 1980 and went to work in a job I didn't want to have, which was sales. So I was selling business forms for a company called Burroughs. Mm-hmm. And I was driving through the neighborhood, and I happened to see a local trucking terminal, and I know they use a lot of forms, right? Delivery receipts, things like that.
Right.
So I stopped in and made a sales call, and the fella inside told me, the terminal manager, we don't buy forms from here. They're bought out of Virginia, but are you interested in a career in trucking? And I didn't know very much. Mm-hmm. I didn't know very much about trucking. And, I said, what can you tell me about trucking? And he says, well, we'll give you a company car, an expense account, and it's a lot of missionary sales. So you get to take customers to lunch and dinner and whatnot. And I thought, okay. And
that sounds pretty good.
Mm-hmm. That started my career in logistics. I spent 10 years in the trucking side of it. 1980 was the time it got deregulated. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of interesting times for companies as they struggled to figure mm-hmm. life out in a deregulated environment. Mm-hmm. 10 years there, and then I got recruited to a warehousing job, and that started my warehousing career in 1990. And from there, it was various positions until I landed with Amware Fulfillment, Amware Logistics, in 2015, and worked there for a couple of years, became CEO, and here we are today.
I love it. Well, I think the first question I have is explain what a fulfillment center does, because I think so many people don't quite understand exactly what that means.
So a third-party fulfillment center is a warehouse that has multiple customers in it. Could be anything from shipping food, cosmetics, health and beauty. And what we do is we're the back end for companies that market the product. So the orders will come in through a shopping cart or through the company's website. They will transition those orders to me. Mm-hmm. We'll take those orders. We will pick them, pack them as efficiently as possible, and get them on their way to the end user. That's what a fulfillment company does.
Mm-hmm. So pretty easy and pretty basic. And we were talking before the program, there is somebody that everybody's familiar with that does this, and that's that little company called Amazon. And I think so many people don't understand that most products that come out of Amazon and are branded Amazon are not theirs. They are the fulfillment center for third-party companies. And they just happen to be, if not the biggest in the world, one of the biggest.
They are the biggest in the world. They're clearly a marketplace, and when you have that size, you almost have to have a one size fits all
Right.
for their customers, right? You can't customize things. They've got to do things rapidly
Right.
for thousands of customers, and so they will pretty much tell you how they want your product. They'll tell you where they'll put it. They'll tell you the hours they'll ship it, how they'll store it. So pretty much if you can live in that environment, it does a good job for what it
Right.
does. We do not compete with Amazon. What we
Right.
do,
You guys customize.
we customize very, very much. So we are the dare I say it, the Burger King of fulfillment. Have it your way. We don't write the rules. We try to understand,
Okay.
what your end goal is as a business. What are you trying to accomplish? How do you want to accomplish that? And then we'll be your back room. We will do everything that you would do from a customization perspective. We'll build kits. We'll add things to it. We'll add personalization to it. We'll pack it in a way that you would like it packed. So pretty much anything that you can conjure up and that you would do yourself, we would do for you.
Right. And a lot of companies, obviously, when you're starting out, unless you buy an existing company, if you have a product that you are selling, many times we're shipping it ourselves, right? We've got it in our garage to start with. We've got it in the basement. Then we might get big enough to move to a storage facility, and have a couple employees. Where kind of is the sweet spot where somebody goes, I can't do this myself anymore, and they need to totally outsource it?
The sweet spot for outsourcing would be when you can no longer handle what it is you need to handle. When you're starting to get
Which could be small, could be big.
Correct. We at a point in time, we handled startups, really small people that were just leaving the garage, a couple of hundred shipments a day, maybe. And we found that with a lot of those, there's a lot of hand-holding that has to take place because many of these small entrepreneurs aren't resourced very well.
Right.
So we would help those entrepreneurs generally find someone who specializes just in transitioning you from your garage, if you will, your back room into something a little bit more bigger and formal. We generally look for customers that ship maybe a minimum of 50,000 shipments a year, which really isn't a lot when you think about it, right? It's 4,000 shipments, is 1,000 shipments a week. It's 200 a day if I break it down. So that's where we really start to get involved with transition marketers and those that are really looking to grow, that have a marketing plan and a vision that say, hey, I see myself here, but in 5 years, I see these 50,000 orders growing to 500,000.
Right. I love that. And I was sharing before we started the program that I am getting ready to jump into doing a business where we have products that we will sell. But right now, it really is, shoot, I'd be happy to ship one a week. I mean, it's that type of thing. But, fingers, toes, eyes crossed, you never know. We might hit a much bigger mark. So walk me through this process, what that, how, and because more importantly, for people who are getting ready to take that leap, what questions should they be asking, all of those various things?
Well,
we got an hour. We
they should hit my website as we walk them through that. But things that they need to consider is whether they want to insource it or outsource it. And I would tell you that most entrepreneurs are very, very good at marketing and selling. That's what they do. And then the back end is almost kind of an afterthought. So what they really need to be thinking about is, what's critical and what's important to them. Is speed to customer important? If that's the case, you probably want to locate your product centrally in the United States where, right, you can ship from a central point and get it out to everybody in a couple of days. If speed is not critical, but the product is fairly unique and you have a broad SKU base, then you're going to want to stay in one facility. It might not be that critical where exactly you locate that product, as long as you're somewhat near a hub in a major city that you get the pickup and you're not stretching out transit time to 10 days. But complexity, the more complex, the more personal services you provide as part of that whole packaging will drive whether you're ready to outsource or not outsource. In today's market, the advantage, the benefit of outsourcing is you don't have to manage people. Everybody is really struggling today, trying to find employees.
Right.
And if you think about your core mission is to really grow your company and market, do you really want to get involved in the back end of it and hiring people, managing people, turnover, everything that's associated with it?
Right. Well, and as you mentioned, you might be located in, say, Kansas City, but needing facilities in other places. And so then you're going to have to deal with the labor laws in those states. I mean, just that gets pretty complicated pretty fast.
So labor laws, yes, it's interesting. Virtually every state has its own labor laws, and you've got to get up to speed on those labor laws. So the question is, do you want to make it your goal and your mission in selling to understand all these different labor laws? Yes, that's a facet of outsourcing, and just not only labor laws, but if you wanted to manage your own brick and mortar in multiple cities. I mean, think about that. How do you hire? If you're in Kansas City and you want to open up a facility in Los Angeles, okay, how do you go about doing that? Do you hire someone out there, and then how do you manage the people at that point? How do you support that facility as it goes through turnover, growth pains, all the things that are associated with running an operation remotely? And think about the infrastructure that you have to have. Third-party providers like Amware, that's what we specialize, right? We're geared up that we have a human resource department, we have a transition and integration team. We've got everybody to support all of my operations around the country. So anytime there's any kind of an issue or an opportunity, a big volume spike, a big sale goes on, we literally can move people all around the country to handle that in very, very short amount of time. So what companies like Amware does is it allows entrepreneurs to really focus on the business, really focus on why people, hit the click button, hit the buy button, and then everything that happens after the click we'll take care of from that point. So it's a great marriage. It's a great resource for entrepreneurs who, don't know how big a facility I'm going to be in Los Angeles. So how big of a brick and mortar facility do I want to have out there?
And even where? You could pick a location that, say, semis couldn't get to, or rail. I mean, depending on what your product is, you might need some major type of support.
Not just where it's not convenient for a pickup, but where employees are, where are employee pools, I mean, you wouldn't want to open up a facility right next door to an Amazon facility, and compete with Amazon for employees and whatnot. So you really want to be judicious about where you place your building. You want to make sure it's a good environment. It's a safe environment. Safety.
Yeah, because you probably are going to be running 24/7.
For some facilities, they run round the clock. That's absolutely right. But it was when I was working, and GE Supply was my customer in the early 90s. Their attitude was, if you look out the back of the building and you don't see razor wire, you're in the wrong location.
Oh,
yes, that was an interesting philosophy that they had, that they wanted to be in industrial areas.
Well, it is less expensive.
But it comes with a price. It comes with, and today, listen, employees have lots of choices, lots of concerns. So, locating that facility in a good place for commuting, carpooling, all comes into play. And those are things, again, if you think as an entrepreneur, those are the decisions that you have to make and the research you have to do. Someone out there has already done that for you, and you can tap into that.
Right. And yeah, I mean, that's just the thought of it is mind-boggling. Especially if it isn't, if it's local, it's complicated enough. Then when you start thinking about, facilities that are somewhere else, yeah, it really does make sense to outsource.
employees are our single biggest asset.
Mm-hmm.
It's our single biggest investment.
Mm-hmm.
And we make sure that we focus on that group, from everything from training to rewards, to employee of the month, to making sure that benefits are right, that benefits are competitive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything we do revolves around our associates. I would tell you that it's a full-time job, but it's a full-time mission for the organization, right? There's two things that we focus on. One is customers, obviously, first
Mm-hmm.
and foremost, and then secondly, it's our employee base,
Mm-hmm.
it's our associate base.
Right.
Want to make sure they're resourced properly, they're comfortable, they like the environment they work in, they feel like they make a difference, they come to work. I mean, there's a lot of investment that you have to make that you don't necessarily think about. It goes way, way, way beyond just hourly wage. There's a lot more than work flexibility, work hours, families. We have a very, very large Hispanic base as part of our workforce. We encourage families to apply, work together, come together. Sometimes, years ago, people thought that might have drawbacks, but really the upside is when you're trying to create a family atmosphere as a workplace. There's nothing that says family like real family.
Like family. Mm-hmm.
And we encourage associates to recommend people, refer them. We actually pay them referral bonus for bringing other people in. We want to make sure that our associates feel not just a part of Amware, but that they get very close to the customers that we serve, that they learn that business, that they really feel like they're an extension of our customers.
Yeah, because they could be making suggestions, hey, what if we did such and such different? And you want them to feel like they can do that.
Well, very important to have an open door policy. It's very important to make them feel part of it. And yes, suggesting on ways to improve the process. It's probably one of the top three things my customers always ask me. How can I improve the process? What can we do differently? What can we do better to make it more efficient, to make it faster? So they play a very, very critical role in doing that.
Right. And obviously happy employees are going to provide better service for you. Say you're shipping something that's very fragile. Happy employees are going to make sure it's packed carefully. Employees that don't want to be there are going to chuck it in a box. And so you want to keep people happy.
You want to keep them happy. You want to keep them resourced well. They are the last people to see and touch that product before your end customer does. And the last thing that anybody wants, what keeps my customers up at night, is social media.
Oh, yeah. The people who open the box and go, this was broken. Beep, 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 beep.
Not what I ordered, didn't come on time, wasn't packed properly, thrown in there. I paid a lot of money. Doesn't look like somebody cared. Absolutely. So, making associates feel a very, very important part of that process. Getting the type of employee who understands, hey, this is the way I would like to receive this product. And I'm going to put that kind of effort into it. And we use tools. We use tools to help us find the right associates, make sure that this is the right work environment for them. So we do use matching software. And again, it's more to find people who would be happy in the environment, who want to contribute, who want to be part of that environment. So we make the investment in that. It pays off. And to your point, happy associates, less turnover, less training. I think the government puts a price of about $7,500 per employee turnover per year.
Right.
If you've got 100 employees,
that's a lot of money.
Right. If you've got 100 employees and you think 20% turnover is natural for this business, that means 20 people times $7,500. I mean, you're looking at $150,000 a year just in the cost of turnover.
Right. And that's just if one employee leaves. I mean, Well, and, we've all seen, especially coming out of COVID, the whole labor market is just very strange. I was in, some fast food place and they were advertising that, high potential hourly rate. I'm thinking, holy schmoly, you could work at McDonald's for $17 an hour. Not bad. They paid every day, but more importantly, every day they weren't sure who was going to show up. I think part of that is you pay every day. I'm like, okay, you make them, but they were doing everything they could to get people in there. But so many places now really don't know from day to day who's going to show up to work.
It's an interesting labor force. COVID did change many things, some for the better, some not for the better, right? We did pay people to stay home during COVID.
Right.
We did, kids stayed home from school. So one of the parents had to stay home from school,
Right.
stay home to watch the kids, which meant the labor force shrunk down a little bit. So you're competing now, right? The fulfillment took off during COVID because most of the stores were closed.
Right.
So people are buying online. So all of a sudden, fulfillment's taking off. You have a shrinking labor pool. So yes, companies, fast food companies, those kind of places, yes, day to day, they really struggled. Once we get them in the door, again, you start to treat people like family, like this is an environment you want to be in. They'll want to come to work. And we try to make it as much fun as possible. Every morning we do some calisthenics in the building. We have stories, we get together, we kind of do a little bit of a cheer. Again, it's not a salt mine. We want people to come to work. We want them to feel, again, part of the growth, part of the excitement. So we give employees opportunities. We generally do lunches with them weekly. We do roundtables monthly. We spend a lot of time with our associates, mostly listening. How do we get better? How do we make this a better place to be? But COVID for sure did change the landscape.
Right.
I'm a little bit older. For me, I got to go into stores. I've got to touch.
I want to touch. Yeah.
Right? But COVID taught me I can't do that. So I had to jump online. I had to learn how to buy things online. I'll tell you what, I've gotten to the point right now where if I don't have to drive to a store and deal with parking.
I don't want to put shoes on. That's my thing. I don't want to put shoes on.
I mean, websites have gotten so good, so clear. You can read reviews online and the information that you can get right now at the comfort of your chair and buying. Companies like ours take advantage of that. It's been a boon for us. It's been constant growth. So it's really, again, that's been the upside of COVID. We had a fair amount of tailwinds associated with the big sales spike, and things that people never bought online all of a sudden started to buy online.
Yeah. And it really was one of those things where it was, you hate to say a perfect storm, but it kind of was. And it was something where, like you said, we couldn't go out. We still needed those items. And then we discovered, ooh, look at all these other things that I didn't think I needed. And now I think I need, or it was things that we hadn't needed, but now being home, you had to have everybody had to have an office chair. I mean, I remember that was one of the things that we had a very quick shortage of, but Amazon also really has spoiled us that we want it now. And I'm in Atlanta, where obviously they have big distribution centers. So there are quite a few things that I could get within 4 hours. I ordered something the other day. I had it in 2 hours. I couldn't go somewhere and buy what that was. But then, of course, everything during COVID kind of, threw all that. And we went, what do you mean? I can't get it overnight. It's going to take 2 days. Oh, right. But we did get, so pre-COVID, we were spoiled. But that's where companies like you and like how you treat your employees, it's just second nature that you were able to keep that going.
So Amazon, you make a great point. Amazon set the bar high for expectations on fulfillment business. And it made companies like Amware look internally, get more efficient, take the challenge of, how do we get product? How do we get orders in our building and then get all those orders out by 3 p.m.? So training, staffing, but more importantly for e-tailers, the expectation is that I've got to get my product out in a hurry to people. So if you're an e-tailer selling a commodity like product, yes, you've got to make sure that your transit time is short because customers have a lot of choice.
Oh, yeah. If I can't get it tomorrow,
There's
I'm going to go
other
to somebody else.
correct. There's other e-tailers. And that means that you might have to put your product in multiple warehouses, right? At that point, you want to get very close to your end user. You might have to be in 3 or 4 different locations of mine around the country, Chicago, Dallas, East Coast, West Coast, New Jersey, Atlanta, and LA. So that when an order comes in, the delivery time is not going to be more than a day, maybe 2 at most.
Right.
But if you're selling a very, very unique product with brand loyalty, you can get away with a little bit longer time because customers don't have the same choice. So you don't have to necessarily be in 4 warehouses, maybe 2, right? East Coast, West Coast. Our customers are, they're going to be willing to wait maybe an extra day if they had to wait for that. But you've built up brand loyalty, you've built up uniqueness. So that's a consideration as an e-tailer, is how unique is your product? What will your customers be willing to wait for to have that? And that's how you make your decisions as an e-tailer, where to be and how many locations you have to be in.
Right. So, I want to, again, be walking people through this who might be thinking about doing this. So I'm assuming, I have my product X. I ship it to you and you start doing whatever. So who's responsible, say, for keeping track of inventory? Do I have to keep track of that and then order more? Or do you keep track and send me a note and say, hey, Deb, you need to order more? I mean, how all does that work?
Both of us. We for sure need to keep track of inventory, right? Obviously, we've, it's like money in the bank. You deposit $1,000. You go to the bank a week later, you expect to have $1,000 in the bank. You don't want the teller to say, Deb, we lost $1 of yours. You only have 99.
Yes.
So we track inventory and, incredibly accurate, as treated as money, as the money it is. And we send our customers every night a listing of, what was shipped out, obviously, and we synchronize inventories with our customers. So customers themselves are also going to synchronize with us and balance. Yeah, that makes sense. We're both aligned. We both say I have 500 units. That's great. Now, as far as reorder points go, we can set that with the customer that says, hey, when we reach a certain point, we'll send you a notice, time to reorder. You can manage that. We can manage that. Whatever works best for you. Many of our customers are sophisticated. They do that. And many of them don't. Many of them rely on us. Yep. When I get to that minimum reorder point, please send me an email. Please have your customer service rep call because we need to reorder that. So again, multiple ways to do that, whatever works best for the customer.
Cool. I love that. Because I think that's one of the other things that people worry about is, I've got my stuff. I've sent you my stuff, then I don't know what happens with my stuff. And I only hear if something goes wrong with my stuff.
A big concern for customers or e-tailers who outsource is, does Amware care as much about my business and my product as I do, right? And the answer to that is that's how we make our living.
Yeah, because if you didn't, you'd lose your customers and
correct. I mean, our growth, our happiness of our customers depends on us doing the job the way it's meant to be done. And again, part of our assimilation, part of our onboarding of people is the understanding that you serve 2 masters here. You serve the customer and you serve Amware, and those 2 never conflict. There's never a decision point that anybody in my organization has to make. Is it Amware or is it customer? Because it's always customer. And we partner with people, again, looking to grow, who have that understanding that, hey, you got to do what you need to do. If we ask you to do something as a customer, it's not to make life harder for the people working there. It's because our customers are asking us for that and we need to do it. And it's all about a mindset. If you have the mindset that customers are there to be served and you're looking for ways to make them happy, that's what you do. It's kind of like when you sit in an airline seat, and that these flight attendants are at the end of a long day.
Right.
You ring that bell and you want a cup of coffee. It's nice that they're still able to smile and get it done. That's the job. Right. And so it's no different for our people, customers with late orders, changes. Can we do this? That's part of what we do. It's part of the service. Everything is done with a smile. And everything is done with the understanding we're serving customers here. If they need it done, we're going to find a way to make that.
Well, and what I like is that you are truly part of the team with with your customer, and so not the end user, the customer. So you really are part of their team, And so that's why you're able to provide such great services. You are an extension of them.
We try to participate to the extent they will allow us in strategy meetings,
Mhm.
right? We want to hear where you're taking the company so we can better prepare and
Right.
understand what it is you're trying to
Especially if
do.
they're thinking of expanding and things like that.
We want to have them in our building. We want
Mhm.
them to look at our operation. We want them to see what's involved in what
Mhm.
we do, so that they have a full understanding of what they're asking us to do, what our challenges are, maybe how they can help us. Maybe they can see something that we're not seeing, to make the process better, smoother. We ask always that our harshest critics come in to meet our people, because there's always people that sit in a different environment. Customer service, for instance, the phone will ring and it might be an unhappy customer. Hey, the
Right.
warehouse made a mistake. I'm really upset. Sometimes it's easy for people to put the phone down and say, dang,
It's
that
your fault.
that warehouse doesn't really care. They made a mistake. So we want them to come in and to meet the people and to develop a rapport and a relationship and see what they do, look in their eyes, and really understand that the people who work for me care just as much as they do about happy customers.
Right.
And so, to your point, it is one team. It's one goal. Again, we don't give our people different goals than our customer gives us. We share our customer goals, and that becomes the goals of the team. And as long as they understand the goals of the team, we're all going to be okay. We'll never be at cross purposes. Through my entire career, I've heard everything I think that there is to be said about an outsourced environment. You don't care. You guys are incented differently. You make money even when you make a mistake. And we try to structure the whole agreement so that when our customers win, we win. And if our customers don't win, we share in that as well.
Right.
We are a true partner to our customers. And when you can develop that kind of a rapport and that kind of a working environment with your customers, you're going to have success.
Right. I'm one of these tech nerds. And so, obviously one of the big things that we're hearing about is automation and AI and things like that. I have a cousin who works for a company in Kansas City, and they are doing their own fulfillment, but they're frozen foods. And they just built a new building. I mean, and it's this giant building, and it's almost all completely automated. She's the HR person, and so she was talking about the challenges of, she wasn't hiring floor workers. She was hiring people to run the machines. And to me it's just fascinating because we have to we can't have machines without people. There's still somebody that has to poke the buttons and do all of those various things. But where do you see AI and things like that coming in?
So with a burgeoning economy that's growing faster than the labor market is growing, you have to rely on automation and technology. There's no getting around it. We've just made major investments in robotics, in what I would call low tech machines as well. Right, everybody's got machines that shrink wrap pallets,
Right.
that tape boxes shut, that erect cartons. Those are not necessarily to displace people. I think that is to augment people. So in our environment, the robot, in a warehouse, I said people are our biggest investment. And 50% of your expense in a warehouse is travel, is employee travel to and from locations, believe it or not, 50%. So if you can keep employees in a location, you cut down on that travel time, which is a waste for everybody, right? It's just dead time that they're walking in the warehouse. Robots, that's where they fill in. They bring, containers to associates. They take fill containers back to the packing department. They fill that role. So we see a larger and larger move to automation, to robotics, again, to supplement the workforce, not to necessarily displace the workforce, because to your point, someone still needs to be there to push buttons, program, make sure things go right, do maintenance, whatever it may be. Customization is still going to be done by people. And robotics will fill in for the non-skilled parts, if you will, carton erectors, making boxes. I mean, people can make boxes. If you remember that commercial years ago, I forget which pizza company it was, the guy
he folds the boxes. Oh my gosh.
So he was an outlier. Everybody would like to have one. that guy is called a cart director, right? So we buy those, and that's
Mhm.
what cart directors do
Mhm.
because you can't find people like him.
Right.
But the cart director doesn't get sick, it doesn't call
Mhm.
off, it doesn't get tired of what
Mhm.
it's doing, it doesn't get carpal tunnel. So
Mhm.
for unskilled, repetitive jobs,
Mhm.
it's a boon for associates to
Right.
not actually have to do
Mhm.
that. So that's the future. As
Mhm.
far as AI goes, that probably might be more on the seller side of the
Mhm.
business than on the fulfillment side of the
Mhm.
business, as you try to figure out buying patterns, right? What motivates
Mhm.
customers to buy. But clearly, robotics, technology,
Mhm.
conveyance, setting up conveyors within the warehouse to move boxes instead of having people move them.
Mhm.
That's the future, and that's the investments that Amware is currently
Right.
making.
And for the people that are, dragging their feet and scared over this, I mean, we've had this for many, many years. I mean, let's talk Henry Ford. When he started automating that process, it really did free up the people to be doing, as you said, the higher skilled things. And so they weren't picking up the part and putting it on the thing. They weren't picking it up, it was done for them, and then they were able to do the more technical parts.
So even jobs that you thought couldn't be supported with
Mhm.
technology. So we've purchased our first set of drones for inside the
Oh.
warehouse, and not, you know what? It's not to retrieve product. I think
Mhm.
that will come too.
Mhm.
We're using drones for things like counting inventory, looking for locations in the
Okay.
warehouse, right? We used to, or today, we'll
Mhm.
send someone out on a piece of equipment, and he might have to go up 30, 40
Mhm.
feet, and he might have to
Right. It
count
might not be
boxes,
safe. Mhm.
might not be safe,
Mhm.
but think about the time it takes.
Mhm.
Drones can do that. And not only
Mhm.
can they do that, they can do that off hours in a facility. They can
Right.
do it during slow periods.
Mhm.
And so all you need is a drone operator
Mhm.
instead of four people in a facility
Mhm.
that do nothing but count inventory. So that's really the state that it's migrating to. And I
Mhm.
look again, it's all about efficiency.
Mhm.
Those people that are afraid of it, I understand it. They're not
Mhm.
small investments, and
Right.
and you need a good knowledge base
Mhm.
to support it. So individual entrepreneurs, right,
Mhm.
running their own warehouse
Mhm.
might struggle with that, might
Mhm.
might be reticent to invest in it, and
Mhm.
I don't blame them.
Mhm.
Got on average 10, 12 customers in each of my warehouse. So it's
Mhm.
easy for me to spread that cost. Each
Right.
customer pays for 1/12 of it.
Mhm.
So nobody gets overburdened with technology, and
Mhm.
I can afford to buy it.
Mhm.
If you think about the old buying cooperatives
Mhm.
that took place in the 50s and 60s, where
Mhm.
small entrepreneurs got together to look as
Right. It's
one,
the same thing. You're
it's the
sharing
same thing.
costs.
We're
Mhm.
sharing technology now.
Mhm.
So we're getting a lot of our customers who never dreamed they
Mhm.
could access this kind of
Right.
technology. They're now not only accessing it, but they're reaping the benefit
Mhm.
of the efficiency, so that logistics cost doesn't become
Mhm.
overly burdensome to them and their customers.
Mhm.
It keeps them very competitive.
Right. And sharing costs is obviously a way to help reduce costs, but what are some other ways that people, because I'm sure part of it, the person who's thinking, okay, am I ready for this? They're thinking, oh God, it still sounds expensive. So, what are other ways that using, the third party fulfillment centers, how are they reducing costs?
So if you let's start with the entrepreneur who's doing it himself.
Hmm.
He's got a fixed cost. It's the building. Is
Hmm.
the building big enough? Is it too big? Is he paying for space in that building thinking he's going to grow into it? But until you grow into it, you're paying
It's
the rent,
empty space. Hmm.
empty space, and that's a big burden.
Hmm.
People, how do you handle spikes in your business? Do you overhire
Hmm.
people? So, do you buy your own warehouse management system?
Hmm.
Many small companies work off of Excel and manage things
Hmm.
really with kind of ad hoc programs, if
Hmm.
you will, and it works okay when you're small.
Hmm.
As you start to get big, as you start to add SKUs, as you start to add
Hmm.
complexity, you've got to make investments.
Hmm.
So, how big an investment, how big a building, how much equipment do you buy? Do
Hmm.
you buy it for peak? Can you rent it when
Hmm.
all those decisions, and that becomes a fixed cost
Right.
once a customer
Hmm.
decides that. In my environment, it's all variable cost.
Hmm.
You pay for what you use. You
Hmm.
have you have a big month and you have a big sales month.
Hmm.
Your expenses will match that. They will flow
Right.
with your
Hmm.
revenues, which is what every entrepreneur
Hmm.
wants. The last thing you want is, geez, I've got a slow month,
Hmm.
but my rent is still up here. My
Hmm.
equipment expense is still up here. My
Hmm.
payment to the software company. When you outsource, you're paying in a variable environment. You might pay a little bit more, at least what you think you are. But I think when most entrepreneurs add up all the costs that's involved in managing the back end and the people you have to hire and HR and the laws you have to comply with and legal that you have to invest in, outsourcing becomes very, very favorable. In fact, probably less costing if you're honest about the way you allocate costs. You'll find that outsourcing is not only more efficient and effective and cheaper, it matches your revenue stream perfectly well so that you don't have a tough month.
Right. Yeah. I was just thinking about seasonal type of goods, where they could easily have wild fluctuations. Say you're doing, Christmas stuff and you're starting now to really hire up and people, and you're telling people, hey, you're only going to work through January. Yeah. Some people are going to like that. Some people aren't. But yeah, I mean, just and then all of a sudden, something like COVID hits and you've got all of these people, outsourcing in so many ways makes sense. I mean, clearly at some point you might get bigger than that. And that's great, but yeah, to be able to have a trusted partner is something that I think so many people they're afraid of, but they know they need it.
So you make some great points about seasonality. Again, do you run out of space in season because you've stocked up? And what do? Now you're in overflow, multiple buildings. You've got to find, you've got to have a real estate group that goes out and finds your buildings, that manages it. Can you get space short term when everybody is looking for it? Right. See, you're not the only one with a seasonal kind of bump.
There's a lot of office space right now, but there's not a lot of industrial space.
Not a lot of warehouse space, not a lot of warehouse employees you can find. To your point, I'm going to be out of a job when the season is over. So how hard am I going to work? How much am I going to care? You're right. People who insource that have to deal with all of that. We know how to deal with it. We know how to onboard labor quickly. Most of our people, we can move from account to account. Not everybody hits the season at the same time. So for us, moving labor within a building is a huge, huge advantage. And yes, do you want to deal with that headache of people and space and equipment, if you can get it, when you're trying to sell as much as you can in a seasonal environment that could be as much as 60 or 70% of your annual sales happens in the span of 6 weeks.
Right. And of course the benefit to an organization like yours is, as you said, you can move people around and balance stuff out. So, you might have a big chunk that does summer things and then a big chunk that does winter things. And so, it's easy just to kind of cross those people back and forth.
As we look for partners for customers, we try to find complementary customers.
Right. Yeah. So somebody who sells, say, garden equipment with somebody who sells holiday equipment.
Correct. I mean, even for us, the task of having a whole warehouse where everybody in that warehouse has a seasonal blip at the same time, you're going to go 4X, and you're going to go 4X on your space. You're going to go 4X on your people. You're going to go 4X on equipment. For us, we have resources that could do it, but even we don't want that challenge. Even we, again, look to balance it out and bring customers together so we can keep one workforce, right? In the summertime, they're working, to your point, they're working summer items. And then in the winter or seasonal time, they're working Christmas holiday items. Makes a lot of sense. And because we have a broader view, we can get that done.
Right. So what are some of the big mistakes that you see people make?
Oh boy, overbuilding, right? We dealt with an energy drink company that made aggressive assumptions about demand for its product and sunk millions of investors' dollars into building, fulfillment operations to handle future volume. Unfortunately, sales were well below forecast, and the company wound up folding under its debt. And then you can underbuild. A clothing marketer started in an owner's basement. When the product began to gain traction, thanks to some very, very good public relations, the company was slow to react, and order to delivery time went from 3 days to 16 days. Right? Customers should. That's when social media lights up.
Oh yes, I ordered this and didn't have it in time for my party.
And that's what keeps everybody up at night. And then, the other mistake is, you can build for average. A jewelry company had a smooth fulfillment operation, but failed to anticipate a 35% spike in orders just prior to the holidays. With no contingency plan in place, orders were delivered after the holidays, which comes with an apology note, and
Yeah, you
usually,
get an empty box. It's not nearly as fun.
well, you may get a gift certificate in for your next purchase if you're daring enough to do
Mhm,
that. But
mhm,
right, that disappoints customers, and that's going to slow a company's growth. So,
mhm,
so those are the biggest mistakes that company brands make when it comes to planning fulfillment
mhm.
operations: overbuilding, underbuilding, building for
Right.
average. It's tough to hit that spot.
Mhm. Right. And of course there are outside influences. I mean, nobody 5 years ago predicted COVID. I think one of my favorite memes that went around right at the start of COVID was, who had this on their thing? Where are you gonna be in 5 years? And so nobody saw that. And then when you add in the fact that, all the shipping difficulties that people had, both internationally and because like now we're seeing the glut of all these products that were ordered and didn't get in, and now, oops, here they are. And then the labor shortages, the gas prices. I mean, if you're relying on semis to be moving your stuff around, and they can't afford to be doing that. I mean, it's pretty tricky, and so that's where, if you're doing it yourself, it's like throwing something at a dartboard.
If you scale for the long term,
Hmm.
the best approach you could take is a modular approach, right?
Right.
Like Legos, right? You
Hmm.
you you build your Lego, and then you can
Hmm.
go out and buy some more Legos, and you
Hmm.
can add on to that. If you can somehow have access to space that you can add as you need, it's
Hmm.
very, very rare.
Hmm.
But if you can do something like that and
Hmm.
build your business in a modular approach way, that would be one way to do it. But the,
Hmm.
the, the best way to do it is to really outsource to a 3PL that
Hmm.
can grow with you. They
Hmm.
they have the resources, they have the relationships with
Right.
realtors, material handling
Hmm.
equipment companies, staffing agencies, recruiting, internal
Hmm.
recruiting, that they have all the tools that helps your business grow. And all you really need to be concerned about at that point is marketing,
Hmm.
making sure that you can source your product
Hmm.
properly, get it overseas here. The other thing that the pandemic did was really, really strain the supply chain.
Right. Hmm.
So we have a Christmas distributor,
Hmm.
and obviously everything happens Christmas
Hmm.
time. They start to go through their product build around the May June
Hmm.
timeframe, where product starts to come in. And for this particular Christmas company, tree company,
Hmm.
we handle about 350 containers a year from overseas.
Hmm.
Well, last Christmas, if you remember, everybody got caught in a supply
Right.
crunch. There was
Hmm.
no capacity on the
Hmm.
steamship lines. So, what started out happening in May and June, we didn't get our first container in till September.
Ooh.
And so, the question for all of us, including my customer,
Hmm.
was, are you going to be able to push through the product,
Hmm.
the same amount of product in
Right.
that really
Hmm.
condensed window now?
Hmm.
We worked together. I would tell you that it was a Herculean effort, but
Hmm.
we handled the same number of containers in about a third of the time. No one would want to go through that again.
No, because I'm guessing you had to really staff up.
We had to staff up. We had to work hours. We had to coordinate with the delivery people. I mean, it became literally a manufacturing line
Hmm.
from steamship to
Hmm.
outbound.
Right.
Got it done. Not obviously the most efficient or way you want to do it. A lot of sweating,
Hmm.
but we made a lot of people happy with their Christmas trees, with their
Hmm.
artificial Christmas trees and accessories.
Hmm.
And everybody got smart as a result of
Hmm.
that. So my customers started to build up inventory.
Hmm.
Right, the first thing they did was approach me, is, hey, we want to have a lot more safety
Right.
stock this year. We
Hmm.
don't know what's going to happen.
Hmm.
We don't know if China or Asia is going to close down
Hmm.
because of a pandemic.
Hmm.
And so they got smarter about it, and this year, earlier, a little bit more, a little bit bigger of a buffer. And by the way, I do want to say one thing about the pandemic: we did not close a single operation throughout COVID.
Right. And I'm guessing that you were considered a critical function, and so you didn't have to.
Well, we didn't have to, but right, if employees don't come
Hmm.
to work, if employees get sick at home, I mean,
Right.
we went through cleaning protocols in the
Hmm.
facility where we had 24-hour people. All they did was wipe, sanitize constantly, walking around. We did all the scanning when people came in, the temperature readings, if
Hmm.
anybody had a temp. We went through the same protocol of
Yep.
questions. Have you been sneezing,
Hmm.
coughing? And knock on wood, we kept our operations humming, people
Nice.
going, and we kept our employees safe.
Hmm.
We're proud of that, proud of our record. But again, we have the resources, we have the access, and for us to focus on that makes sense. If you're selling product and you've got to focus on that at the same time, that's a big job. That's a big task.
Right. You know, it's funny because I just was watching a couple days ago on the news a story about how Amazon, oh, actually, it was talking about how companies are unionizing. And, you know, and there's one, Amazon, that did. And one of their big things was that during COVID, they did not feel safe. You know, they felt like they were being forced to work when it wasn't safe, all of these various things. And you know, and people might be, well, at least you had a job. You know, yes, at least they had a job, but you do want to feel safe. You want to feel valued, all of those various things. And whether you're somebody the size of Amazon or not, you need to do those things for your employees.
Everybody wants to feel respected. Everybody wants to feel at the end of the day, they matter. They make a difference. It's not just I hit the clock in, tell me what you want me to do for 8 hours. People want a sense of accomplishment that when they go home, they did something, they, you know, and they feel satisfied professionally, as well. I was a union member early in my career. I was a shop steward for a number of years. The one thing I would say is companies get the union they deserve.
Right.
If you treat your employees not as chattel, you know, not as tools, but if you treat them as human beings and understand their motivations and work towards that, you'll never have a union because people like that one-on-one. People are competitive. People feel, hey, if I work harder, I want to make more money. I don't want to look across at Harry next to me and, you know, he's sleeping half the day and he's making just as much money as I'm making.
Right.
But sometimes people feel that that's their only recourse because management's not listening. You know, they don't respect us. As you mentioned, that facility that got unionized, I believe it was in Staten Island, New York. For Amazon was the first one. You know, you've got Starbucks now where people are kind of making noise about it. Again, you know, that's a great point. Focusing on employees is a full-time endeavor.
Right.
And if I'm selling product, I don't want to take my eye off my customer. I don't want anything to distract me from understanding my customer, their buying habits, what makes them happy, and what they're seeing. I don't want to be distracted. And third-party providers good ones allow you to do that.
Right. Yeah, because you know that they're treating their employees well, so that's something that you're not having to worry about.
Yes. We have an open door policy, but more than just keeping the door open and waiting for people to come in, as I mentioned earlier, we have roundtables, we have lunches, we have employee of the month meeting, we celebrate birthdays, we have that morning meeting. We want to get very, very close to our people. And again, make sure they feel we respect them and that they're resourced properly to do a professional job.
Right.
We don't want to rob them of the dignity of doing a good job.
Right. Yeah, because, you know, in some ways it's repetitive. It's things like that. And you still want them to know, you know, what you do is important.
Their scenery doesn't change every day. It looks the same. It is one tough job. I take my hat off to them. It's a difficult job to do day in and day out. That's why we let them, you know, music in the warehouse. We'll try to make that work environment as much fun and comfortable as possible so that they can do a good job. And again, don't dread walking into that building every day and say, oh my God, here's another 8 hours in the salt mines.
Yeah, I always remember, and you're finally of the generation. I tell this to my younger guests, and they don't understand the commercial. I think it was for Dunkin' Donuts, and this was back in probably the 70s. And the little guy, you know, you could see his clock. It's 2 a.m. He's getting out of bed. Gotta make the donuts. Gotta make the donuts. And you know, and same thing. I mean, you know, if now we're not going to love everything we do all the time, but there are certainly steps that can be taken to make sure that it's you know, you're doing the best that you can.
You know, adversity reveals character. It doesn't build it.
Right.
And you know, one of the things you want to sensitize everybody to is that there are going to be some tough days. You know, there are going to be days where some people called out, there may be vacations. We didn't get all the people showing up from the staffing agents. And you're going to get days where you're going to be challenged. And what you really want is associates who understand that's the exception. It's not an everyday occurrence. And when those days happen, we're all in the boat together. We're all going to row. We're going to do what we have to do to get through this. We understand it. And we understand that the people who are responsible or in charge of this have done everything they possibly could to mitigate our pain and our having to stay longer because we have kids we need to get to. We have families we need to get back to. We have dinner we need to make, whatever it may be. And again, that's about one team, one unit, one understanding, keeping your associates informed. And again, having them believe that they're working in a place that cares for them.
Right. It's funny. My background is in employee communications. And, it really is. That's absolutely critical, because if you don't tell them, we don't like a vacuum, right? And so then they make it up. And most of the time, they're not making it up correctly. So, even if it's not good news, tell them, because what they're going to come up with in their own mind is usually worse. And so having those open lines of communication is just absolutely critical.
I try to get my employees comfortable. I'm the CEO of the company. I don't want anybody to fear me or anything like that. I'm just like they are, and so when I have a stand-up meeting, I encourage my employees to ask any question, anything. They can ask me any question they want. It doesn't mean I will answer it. And those are the boundaries that, someone might ask me, what's your income and what's your salary? I might let them know that. But I don't want anything to be off bounds, because I want to hear what they're thinking.
Right.
And to your point, if we don't give them the information that they need, they'll fill it in. And it's generally not good when they fill it in. And you don't want people doing that. You want to keep them. And listen, this is the company they work for. They should take an interest in it.
Right.
They should feel comfortable that we're taking the business in the right direction, that it's growing, that they will benefit from it. Very, very important. You make a great point with that. You cannot over communicate to employees.
Right.
You can really under communicate, and you're going to have a problem when you do, but you can never over communicate. And they appreciate that at the end of the day, that you took the time and trouble to come down and have the conversation.
Right. Oh my gosh, Harry, this has been so much fun, and we are almost at the top of the hour. I want people to know more about the services that you provide, which, I know that they're long and detailed, but what are some of the services? We've been talking about it, but then how do they connect with you if they are truly saying, hey, we're ready for this next step?
So the website is www.amwarefulfillment.com, Amware, AMWARE. The website is full of case studies, information. I mean, it's just a great website to peruse. It will spur a thought process for many of your listeners. And they can just, there's a way to access us through the website. We'll get back and we'll work with them, even on a consultative basis, and we can help them, point them in the right direction of where they need to go. There's no obligation. There's no charge for doing that. And, we're in this for the long term. We're trying to make as many relationships as we can, and, hope people always speak well of us and recommend us.
I love it. I love it. Well, and I was looking at your website, great information. And as you said, the case studies, I think, are always some of the best things, because people can usually find something similar to what they do. And then they can say, oh, this is how it works, especially if this is a first time thing that they're wanting to do.
Number one question my customers, my prospects ask me is, who else do you do it for like me? Right? They're not interested that you have, boxes and move boxes in and out. They want to know who, like me, what cosmetics companies do you do? What health and beauty company? What do you do for them? They want to know that. And my best references are my customers. I don't want my salespeople to feel bad, but my customers sell more. We get more references and more business through references than we do really any other way.
Wow.
Believe it or not. Yes.
I love that. I love that. So important. Well, if somebody wants to reach out to you personally, how do they reach you?
That would be Harry.Drajpuch, DRAJPUCH, at AmwareLogistics.com. That's how they can best reach me.
Easy peasy. I love it. Well, this has been, like I said, such an interesting conversation, because I knew nothing about this. And so I've had a great time. Tell us, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with everyone?
It's a great environment out there from a fulfillment perspective. I would tell companies that the barrier to growth would be the four walls is not selling the product, it's getting it out the door. So I would encourage them to start to take a look at third-party providers. There are many, many good ones like Amware out there that can really help them grow and really let them focus on their core mission, which is to grow and market and sell a product, and let one of the third parties help them on their growth path. That would be my, I've been in the third party business a long, long time. And the one example I would leave you with is if I go out to a restaurant and I'm not happy with the meal, they're going to hear about it. Mm-hmm. If my wife makes me a meal that I didn't think was great, it's still great. She's not going to hear a peep out of it. And that's
wise man. Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between insourcing and outsourcing. Mm-hmm. When you outsource, you can demand that your partner live up to what their commitments are.
I love
Insourcing, people forgive themselves and make excuses of failure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just human nature.
Yep. I love it. Well, this has been an absolutely fascinating conversation with Harry Drajpuch of Amware Fulfillment. I'm Deb Creer, and until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.